Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something I think almost every single person who's tried to learn a new language has struggled with.
That feeling of being stuck.
Exactly, that feeling. We're doing a deep dive into natural fluency. You know, getting to that point where you can speak smoothly, effortlessly, without that constant, that pause inside your head.
It really is the Everest of language learning, isn't it? We hear it all the time from learners who feel so discouraged, maybe frustrated.
Right, because they've done everything they were told to do. Years of grammar study, memorizing lists.
And they still hit that wall,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to a real, spontaneous conversation. They can't find that ease.
And if that sounds familiar to you, then this deep dive is really designed to be the motivation and maybe the change in direction that you need. We're going to go way beyond the textbook today.
We're exploring an approach that sort of reframes the whole idea of learning. It can make it feel less like a chore, less like this rigorous, painful study.
And more like you're just having fun.
Exactly. We're focusing on how to integrate the language so deeply that it just becomes part of you. An automatic, natural part of how you operate.
Bypassing the instruction manual.
That's a perfect way to put it. This is the mechanism that drives real, sustainable fluency. It's about recognizing that fluency isn't just intellectual. It's about deeply ingrained, unconscious knowledge.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts of that, I think we need to set the stage, set the right expectation. There's a metaphor that I think grounds this entire approach. Learning a language. It's like planting a seed. If you stare at it every single day, you're going to feel like nothing is happening. You'll be disappointed.
That patience is so crucial. Because in the beginning, all the real work is happening beneath the surface where you can't see it. Your brain is literally reorganizing itself to handle this new input, and that can feel incredibly slow, almost invisible.
But if you just keep at it.
If you keep watering that seed every day,
Yeah.
Just engaging with the language consistently, one day you'll look back and realize you've grown this incredible, thriving plant.
So that's really the key takeaway from the very beginning for you listening. Progress is progress. It doesn't matter how tiny it feels.
Not at all. Every word you hear, every sentence your brain processes, even passively, it all counts. It's all building that underlying structure in your mind.
So it's about consistency, not intensity.
100%.
Nah.
A little bit every single day is so much more powerful than cramming for 8 hours on a Saturday.
Okay, let's jump straight into the concept that makes all this possible. We're calling it a superpower, but it's just how we learn naturally. Unconscious acquisition. Let's really unpack that. What does that actually mean?
At its core, it's pretty simple. Unconscious learning is when you acquire knowledge without actively trying to. You're not sitting there with flashcards trying to memorize a rule.
Right.
Your brain is just absorbing patterns from all the input you're giving it. It's happening in the background.
So it completely bypasses that conscious effort.
Exactly. It skips the mental manual and goes straight to building what you could call procedural memory, things you can just do automatically.
And we really do rely on this automaticity all the time, don't we? We just don't notice it. I mean, think about walking down a busy street. You're not consciously thinking, okay, left foot now, right foot, avoid that person.
You're not at all. You just decide, I want to go over there, and your body just executes. The system just runs.
We're driving a car. That transition is so clear.
Oh, it's a perfect analogy. When you first learn, it takes every ounce of your concentration, right? You're thinking about every single action.
Mirror, signal, clutch, gas. It's so much mental effort.
But then, after enough practice, the whole process just shifts. It moves from that conscious part of your brain to the unconscious automatic part.
And suddenly you can drive, listen to music, and even have a conversation all at the same time. The driving itself has become second nature.
It's automatic. And that seamless shift from high effort to low effort, that is exactly what we are trying to achieve with a new language.
Let's use one more analogy, the musician.
Great one.
A guitarist learning a new song is staring at their hands, right? They're consciously thinking, okay, first finger, second fret, fifth string.
It's slow. It's mechanical. Full of pauses.
But after they've played it hundreds, maybe thousands of times,
their hands just know what to do. The thought is gone. And that's when the magic happens.
Because their conscious mind is now free.
It's free to focus on emotion, on improvisation, or even on singing or talking while their hands are just doing this complex thing on their own.
And that's the real measure of fluency. When your conscious mind can focus on the meaning, on the idea you want to share.
While the grammar, the vocabulary, the pronunciation, all of that is handled automatically by the systems you've built. That's the goal.
hands-free operation for your English.
Exactly. And the most powerful proof that this works is, well, it's how every single one of us learned our first language
As children.
as children. No kid studied a grammar textbook to become fluent. They were just immersed in the language. Their brains listened, processed a massive amount of data, and just figured it out.
They picked up the patterns.
They picked up the patterns automatically. So they have this perfect fluent ability without being able to explain why something is correct. They just know it is.
That's the superpower, that unconscious knowledge.
Yeah, that is the ultimate goal for you as a learner. To get to that stage where you don't have to pause the conversation to ask yourself, wait, is it is or are here? You just talk.
The right words just appear.
Smoothly and with ease.
Yeah.
Because the structure is embedded deep in your procedural memory, not stuck in your limited working memory.
Okay, this all sounds ideal, but it brings up a really important question, a trap that I see so many smart, dedicated learners fall into. If this unconscious model is so powerful, why does focusing only on conscious, studied the grammar rules, the tests, why does that actually slow you down in a real conversation?
This is such a critical point.
Yeah.
The problem isn't that conscious learning is bad. It's incomplete if your goal is fluency.
Yeah, right.
We mentioned before, many students can get a perfect score on a grammar exam. They understand the rules intellectually.
But then you put them in a real spontaneous conversation.
And that intellectual knowledge actually creates cognitive overload.
So they're basically trying to run a spell check and a grammar check on every single word before it leaves their mouth.
Precisely. And they're trying to do it using their working memory. You can think of working memory as like the RAM on your computer. It's where you actively hold and process information.
And it's tiny.
It's incredibly small. It can only handle, maybe 4 to 7 pieces of information at once.
So if you're trying to think about the meaning, the pronunciation, the verb tense, the word order, your RAM is instantly full.
Instantly overwhelmed. And that's the cause of the delay. While you're in a conversation, your brain is asking all these questions. Should I use past tense here? What's the right preposition for this verb?
And to answer those questions, you have to go access that mental textbook you built.
Right. You have to switch from producing language to retrieving a rule. And by the time you found the rule and built the sentence correctly,
The moment's gone, the conversation has moved on.
the moment is gone. It's exhausting. And it's why you always feel like you're one step behind.
So let's be really clear about the difference here.
The key distinction is this. Conscious learning helps you understand English. It gives you the labels, the blueprint for the language.
But
But it does not help you use it automatically when you're under pressure.
so conscious study is the blueprint, but unconscious learning is the muscle memory.
That is a perfect analogy.
And you can't drive a car at high speed by just reading the blueprint.
You can't. Unconscious knowledge is the missing piece for that real-time application. It moves the whole process from that slow, limited working memory into your vast, super fast, long-term procedural memory.
Okay, so if we understand the trap, let's pivot to the solution. How do we actually build this efficient automatic knowledge? What are the mechanics that let our brain do the hard work for us?
It sounds almost too simple, but the entire mechanism is built on just 2 foundational ingredients.
Okay.
Massive exposure and structured repetition.
There's no shortcut around input, is there?
No, there really isn't. The adult brain, just like a child's brain, needs to be bathed in the language. You have to create an environment where it can see the patterns over and over again.
And I think the big mindset shift for listeners here is that this doesn't have to feel like studying. When you watch a movie in English or a documentary you're interested in, your goal is just enjoyment.
Exactly. You're not sitting there with a notebook trying to force yourself to memorize things. You're just focused on the story.
And because you're relaxed, your brain can get to work.
That's why it works so well. Your brain isn't stressed about performance. It's free to do what it does best, which is learn passively in the background. It's picking up on all these subtle structural patterns that conscious study just can't teach you.
Can you give an example of these subtle patterns? It sounds a bit abstract.
Sure. So fundamentally, your brain is tracking things like collocations.
Which are words that just sound right together.
Words that naturally go together. Like in English, you make a decision, you don't do a decision. You have heavy rain, not strong rain.
Ah, okay. The kind of thing that just feels off if you get it wrong, even if it's grammatically correct.
Exactly. A conscious learner might know all those individual words, but your brain only learns to pair them automatically through massive, repeated exposure.
So if you hear, make a decision 500 times while watching your favorite TV show.
Then that phrase becomes cemented. When you need it later, it'll just come out as a single chunk. You won't even think about it.
So my brain is collecting data on word partnerships. What about sentence structure?
It's doing the same thing. It's building a statistical model of how sentences are arranged. It learns where adjectives usually go, how questions are formed, the natural rhythm of speech.
So if I hear a certain complex sentence structure over and over again,
Your brain starts to treat that structure as the default, as the natural way to organize those ideas.
and this all accumulates in the background until one day.
One day, you'll be in a conversation and a full phrase or a sentence will just pop into your head, fully formed, ready to use.
And you won't remember studying it.
You'll just remember hearing it a lot.
You know, this reminds me so much of my own experience trying to learn French. I started with all the conscious rules, the conjugations. It was painful. My speaking was so slow.
What did you change?
I just shifted to massive, enjoyable listening.
Yeah.
Audiobooks, interviews, anything I could find while I was commuting or at the gym.
And what happened?
The structures I had learned years before suddenly became usable. They started flowing. But, and this is the crucial part, at first I could only use the exact phrases I had heard. If I needed to change a verb or adapt the phrase to a new situation, I had to stop and think consciously again.
That is a brilliant insight, and it really highlights that it's not an either situation.
Right.
Unconscious learning gives you the foundation. It gives you fluency with the most common high-frequency phrases, but your conscious knowledge is what lets you be creative. It lets you break down those patterns and build new sentences when you need to.
So a truly fluent speaker is doing both.
Constantly. They're relying on that automatic system for probably 90% of what they say, and they only call on the conscious rule book when they face a really new or complex communication problem.
So the goal is to make that 90% as big and as strong as possible.
Exactly, and you do that with quality listening.
Okay, this brings us to the most actionable part of our deep dive, the practical strategies. If exposure and repetition are the keys, what are the concrete things the listener can do starting today to build this automatic knowledge?
We can really break it down into two main activities. The first is pure, massive listening input. That is the engine.
And the second?
The second is what we call input-driven practice. This is where you start to actively use the phrases and structures you've absorbed, but in a very low-stakes way.
Let's start with the listening. The biggest advantage you mentioned is not needing to find extra study time.
That's the game changer. It's about habit stacking. You're not finding more time in your day. You're making your existing time more productive.
So your commute to work.
Your commute, your time at the gym, when you're cooking, doing chores, all of that dead time can become incredibly valuable language acquisition time.
But what about the quality of what you're listening to? That's a question we get a lot. Can you accidentally learn bad habits or incorrect grammar?
That is a very, very good question. And the answer is yes, you can. Your brain is a statistical machine. It will learn whatever patterns you feed it most frequently. So if most of your input is, poorly structured or full of errors.
That's the model your brain will build.
Precisely. This is why the quality of your input is so important, especially at the beginning.
So what does high quality input look like?
It could be professionally produced audio, like audiobooks or well-scripted shows, academic lectures, content from trusted news sources, things where the language is clear and well-structured.
But you need a balance, right? You also need to hear how people really talk.
You do. If your goal is conversation, you absolutely need exposure to conversational language, slang, fillers, and all. But it's good to be aware that it's a different kind of data for your brain.
And when you're listening, should you be trying to understand every single word?
Not at all. That would be exhausting and counterproductive. The K is what we call comprehensible input.
Meaning you should understand the gist of it.
Yes. You should be able to follow the main idea, even if you miss some words. A good rule of thumb is to choose material where you understand about 80% of it.
Why is that 80% number important?
Because it keeps your conscious mind relaxed. You can follow the story or the ideas without strain, which allows that background unconscious processing to happen much more effectively.
What's a good technique to get the most out of a piece of audio?
One really powerful method is to do micro-listening sessions. So instead of trying to get through a whole hour-long podcast, you take just a 3-minute segment.
And you listen to it over and over.
Over and over throughout the week. That intense repetition really drills those specific patterns and phrases into your brain.
And if you want to take it a step further,
you can try shadowing. This is where you move from listening into that input-driven practice we talked about.
How does that work?
You listen to a short phrase, and you immediately try to repeat it, exactly as you heard it. You're mimicking the rhythm, the intonation, the pronunciation.
So you're not thinking about the grammar, you're just building the physical muscle memory of speaking.
That's it. It's the bridge between absorbing the language and actually producing it.
And that step from listening to speaking is often the scariest for learners.
It is because they're afraid of making mistakes. They're afraid of having to access that slow, conscious part of their brain.
But with shadowing or using absorbed phrases, the risk is lower.
Much slower. You're not trying to invent a sentence from scratch. You're just repeating something you've already heard 100 times. It lowers that psychological barrier to speaking.
This all comes back to what you said at the very beginning, consistency.
It's the consistency imperative. You have to turn this into a habit that's just as automatic as brushing your teeth.
It's not about finding motivation every day.
No, it's about building a system where it just happens. And if you listen for just, say, 20 minutes a day, every single day, the cumulative effect over a year is massive. That's over 100 hours of focused input.
Whereas if you just study intensely once in a while,
Your brain forgets. The pathways aren't reinforced. Consistency is what guarantees that the seed you planted keeps getting watered.
okay, we've covered the why and the how. Now, I think it's useful to take a moment and just solidify the key vocabulary we've been using. Because when you understand these terms, you can start to analyze your own learning process much more effectively.
I agree completely. Having the right words gives you control over your journey. Let's start with the main goal, automaticity.
Right. And to be clear, automatic doesn't just mean fast. It means it's done without conscious thought.
Exactly. An automatic process feels effortless, even if it took a lot of effort to build it in the first place.
Like the guitarist.
Yeah.
Their playing looks effortless now.
And the result of that automaticity is speaking fluently. That means smoothly and with ease. It's the proof that you've moved the language out of that clunky working memory.
And your speech becomes more naturally produced.
Right. It's guided by these deep patterns, not by a list of rules you're trying to follow.
And this is the opposite of speech that relies too much on conscious effort.
Which is when you're deliberately thinking about every grammatical choice. And that conscious effort is what causes that delay, because it requires high retrieval effort.
You have to go find the rule.
You have to go find the rule. But if you focus on maximizing your exposure,
Just being in contact with the language all the time.
then you reduce the need for that conscious retrieval. And exposure has to be combined with repetition.
That's what lets the brain see the patterns clearly.
Right. The brain is a pattern-finding machine. And the patterns it's looking for are sentence structure and collocations.
The word partnerships we talked about.
Once you absorb those, your ability to speak just takes a quantum leap.
And to do all this requires a certain mindset. It requires commitment.
A dedication to the process. And even more important than commitment is consistency.
Doing it regularly without fail.
Consistency is the single most important variable. It's what ensures those neural pathways get reinforced over and over again until they become permanent.
So using these words, you can almost diagnose your own learning.
Absolutely. If you're struggling with fluency, you probably need more exposure and repetition. If you feel constantly frustrated, you're probably relying too much on your conscious mind.
It helps you remember that this is a long journey.
But you're using the most powerful tool you have, your own brain's incredible capacity for unconscious learning.
All right, as we start to wrap up this deep dive, let's just crystallize the main takeaways. What's the big idea you should walk away with today?
I think it's that unconscious learning is the real definitive key to speaking fluently and naturally. It's what turns academic knowledge into a usable, real-world skill.
And that entire process is built on two things. Massive, consistent exposure, mostly through listening.
And low-stakes, input-driven practice. Taking what you've heard and starting to use it.
And we have to say it one more time. Patience.
Patience and consistency. This is a long journey. You can't rush it. The progress won't always be obvious day to day.
But it's happening.
It is happening. If you surround yourself with the language, your brain is doing the heavy lifting for you in the background.
The more you treat English as an experience, something to enjoy, rather than a subject to be studied,
the more automatically it will start to flow. You'll genuinely surprise yourself one day. You'll say something perfectly without even realizing how you knew how to say it.
because the progress happens under the surface. It turns that memory bottleneck into a superhighway.
So let's leave you with a final provocative thought to consider. If fluency really means getting rid of that internal translator, that conscious rulebook, then think about this. How much could this process be accelerated in the future?
With new tools.
Exactly. Imagine AI that could perfectly tailor your exposure, giving you exactly the repetition you need for the specific grammar structures you're struggling with, moving them from your conscious mind to your automatic system.
It suggests the path to fluency could become even more streamlined, even more effortless.
Provided you build the core habit of consistent input today.
So a great first step is to just look at your day. Find those little pockets of time that can become your listening time.
And just start. Let the consistency do the work.
Keep practicing, keep absorbing, and keep moving toward your goals. We'll be back next time for another deep dive.